it would be way more comfortable to just record videos with this light, but because this is so bright. It's so bright. So today I would like to talk about suffering and the end of suffering. I think, the mind assumes that the end of suffering means the end of pain also. But that's just not true. Like, pain is something that can happen all the time. What makes it seem unbearable is simply the resistance to it. So resistance to life is suffering. So you can imagine life to be like one single flow. And the resistance to this flow is suffering, because you're fighting. If you're resisting life, you're one individual fighting against the whole universe, and you will lose. So the end of suffering is basically just, it means to become one with the flow of life. So you no longer have to make decisions. Like, life is doing the decisions for you. And the ego, or the separate self, is basically the devil. Like, it does not like the flow of life. It wants to control things. So we can say consciousness is like a nightclub, all right? And people want to go into that nightclub. So there's a line, and so the nightclub is the consciousness, and people who want to go into the nightclub, they represent whatever happens, all the appearances, feelings, thoughts, whatever happens, all the forms that appear. But there's like a security that says, okay, you're a good thought, you can come in. You are a good sensation, you can come in. A good experience, you can come in. A bad feeling, now the security says, I need a method to get rid of you. You have to go home. And what happens is that this person is going to the beginning of the line again, but he's angry. Like, he's still a negative thought or a negative feeling. And then the separate self is controlling again, dividing between good and bad, good, bad. This is allowed, this is not allowed. Until this trigger comes up again. Bad feeling. But now this time it's even more intense. But the security guard says, I don't want you here, like, you're even worse than last time. But this feeling, this inner feeling of tension gets worse and worse. So you can only get rid of that suffering if you allow that bad feeling. Like, the security guard you have to get rid of that security guard, so that whatever appears in consciousness is automatically allowed. Like, you don't even have to say, I accept. It's automatically one with consciousness. So the bad feeling comes, you don't need a technique to feel that. It's already felt. It's already here. So right now you can become aware of that feeling that brought you on this seeker journey, because people who feel good all the time, who feel at home all the time, they're not interested in enlightenment. At least I don't think so. It's hard to imagine. But if you become aware of this feeling of, this tightness, it's uncomfortable, if you can just simply allow that without a technique, it's already here, and you're no longer looking for a way to get rid of that feeling, because who says that it's not allowed? It's only this security guard. And now he's unemployed. So there's only consciousness being one with the form that appeared. So what you call negative emotion, negative thoughts, are allowed naturally. And that's how your whole day becomes, even though the body is engaged in activities, the whole day is one meditation, and there's no separation between the observer and the observed. It's just one flow. And that's why it happens immediately. Like, it's not even something that clicks. It's just the natural, effortless allowance. And there's not someone that is allowing. It's just natural allowance. Like, those words appear, everything else appears. Whatever feeling is here is already here. Thoughts appear. There's no fight. There's no resistance, therefore there's no suffering. It's just a natural flow. And there's no separate self anymore that says, this is a world. It's not a world. There's no need to say what this is. So nothing clicks. What can happen when the mind tries to awaken, the mind is listening to teachings, then it is said that consciousness is separate from the thought in a way, or that's never actually being said, but it seems like that's being said or that's what is meant when someone says that the consciousness is watching the thought. So there's like this feeling of this consciousness that is watching the thought. But when the mind tries to see that, if that's really the case, what's automatically happening is that the mind is separating itself. Or we can say it's a thought observing the thought. And that takes effort. For a while it can seem like you're doing progress, because now you're no longer the thought, because you see the thought, but you don't see that the one that's looking at the thought is a thought. It's like there's this thing of I'm seeing the thought and I have to see every single thought. Don't miss the thought. Then you get very tired, and at some point you stop because you're tired. And ironically, when you are tired, that's when you get it. That's when you're no longer trying. That's when just things appear, and there's the thought that pretends to be consciousness is still the security. So in a way, you don't have to do anything. And that's what you want. That's liberation. You don't have to do anything. The you is not here. Decision making happens by itself. Whatever you decide to do doesn't happen on your behalf. It happens on the behalf of the universe. That's such a beautiful way to describe it. I've heard that from Rupert Spira. Your doings are not your doings. When there's this identification, it seems like there's this me that tries to figure it out. Like, hopefully I'm having the right decision. But there's no such thing as a decision. Like, it happens. There is no other way. And the reason I know that is because when there's no longer this tension, this feeling of it's my responsibility, there's just this flow, and it feels like whatever this body's doing is being done by the same energy that is causing the clouds to rain. That's causing the sun to shine. So it's causing this body to record a video. So there's no decision. It's just natural flow. And in this natural flow, there's so many good things happening. I cannot promise you that your finances will be better, because that's something I cannot know. That's like the mind cannot touch the ways of consciousness. And it's so easy. Just whatever you're resisting right now. Because the mind has learned that negative feelings and thoughts and behaviors have to be suppressed in a way. So you use methods to suppress negativity. Therefore, you are wearing this mask of being the good one, and all this negative stuff becomes like a separate entity that the mind is projecting onto others, and that's called the shadow. But that's not the shadow. That's not. It is the shadow. It's not the others. It's you. It's what you have suppressed. It's what you have to go through without resistance. So get rid of that security guard and let that negativity inside of the nightclub, which is actually consciousness, let it become one. Let the problem become one with consciousness. Which is another way to say return to God. When you have a problem, then go to God with those problems. That's another way to say, like, you don't have to, oh God. It's really just this acceptance, this immediate allowing. And what can happen is that something looses up. It's just, or you cry. There's just this freedom, or laughter. It's just sigh of relief. an eternal sigh of relief. And there is still pain and problems and challenges, but somehow it's just not. It's just. It's easier. You feel this sense of I'm home. Even though there is pain, emotional pain, like when you realize your true nature, it doesn't mean that trauma is gone right away. It doesn't mean that negative thoughts are gone and you're just pure bliss. It's basically when you realize your true nature, what happens is that this is the start of something huge. But it's not a process. Like, you're not involved in the process. You're not there. You're just like you're just, it's happening. But in this happening, there's this release. This constant release of what wants to be released naturally. Like when a forest is burned down, naturally the trees want to grow. And they will grow if there is no fire involved. So naturally there's already this energy inside of the body, inside of the mind, everywhere, that wants to heal that heavy baggage. But it can actually only be done and be fully healed and released when there's no one in the way, no security. When you allow what the mind interprets as negative, when you allow that anyway, even though it's uncomfortable, it's allowed. Free flow, automatically free flow. So that's how you can meditate all the time.